So it's that time of year again. The leaves are falling and need to be collected. For most of my life, we would get giant tarps out and use a combination of our mower side discharge, a leaf blower, and rakes to collect all the leaves, but last year we invested in a leaf collection system. We decided to buy a cyclone rake because of how easily it breaks down and stores away for most of the year, and I went a little above and beyond to really keep it out of the way. Now it's time to build it back up, and with no tools necessary, I was able to put it all back together. I made sure to put it away with no fuel in the system so I could give it some fresh gas for the season. Let's see how easy it is to start up this Briggs & Stratton engine after 10 months in storage. First pull, baby, after 10 months of storage. This thing's nice. The last thing to do is bring in my mower and hook it up. To take it on and off is just some pins for the hitch and latches for the collection port and tubing. It's really easy to connect and disconnect the whole system in between collections. Okay. Should be ready to do the job. Now, I really like this thing, but it is loud. I did a decibel meter test last year, and the range is something like 95 decibels up to like 110. And I'm sure that's some combination of both the mower and this motor going at the same time. So I found that you really need to wear double ear protection or you have ringing at the end of the day, because you might be on this for a long time depending on how big your yard is. So I actually use some little in-ear earbuds to listen to music, and then on top of that use these decibel defenders that I bought on Amazon. It's an American company. I'm sure they're made in China or something like that, but American veteran-owned company, and as far as I can tell, these are the highest decibel reduction earmuffs that are on the market. They claim 37. I think officially they get 31. There's some kind of reasoning for that they explain, but officially it's 31. And anything that you see on the market is in the upper 20s as the best ones, and they're more expensive. These do work really well. The only downside is this surface is pretty hard. So if you're wearing glasses or something like that, the sound can actually get through it a little bit. So there is a trade-off. I'm sure that hard surface has to do with how they get so much reduction, but it comes at the caveat that having anything else around that area does reduce it, so you have to make sure you have it sealed pretty well. But I like them. I've been using them for over a year now, and they're maybe 25 bucks or something like that, maybe 30 bucks. If you want to get a pair, go through my affiliate link. They're nice. Now, before I get started, there are definitely some limitations to this system. For one thing, the trailer, or the rear, the cyclone rake, is basically rigidly attached to the back. There's no pivot to it, except it has some freedom to float up and down. So when you're using this thing, you're one tall thing and it just pivots, from the middle, especially because I have this one hooked up to a zero turn. Absolutely works. But you're pivoting from that center point, so you have to be really mindful when you move this thing around. And in my situation, our property and where we're collecting leaves is mostly not very flat, so you have to really think about how you're going up and down and on the inclines and stuff. It tells you to go straight up and down hills. I would advise doing that, but for me it gets a little bit challenging time-wise to keep always doing that. So you'll learn where you can be kind of on an incline sideways, but sometimes if your back is too heavy because you've collected a lot of leaves, it might just give way, and you got to just let it, because there's no recovering. You got to let it turn and back down the hill carefully. So you got to keep that in mind. If you have kind of a regular standard tractor that you have this hooked up to, you have a lot more control, I would think, but it works really well at collecting leaves. I'm gonna get started here and you can kind of see a little time lapse of me working and how we do it. So there we have it. That's the first day of a new season of using the Cyclone rake. Worked great, just like it did last year. You know, there's things you gotta be aware of and be careful with. Mainly things like you don't wanna overfill the bag. I filled her up a little bit. It becomes very unwieldy and a little bit unstable, especially on not flat terrain. And then dumping it out is a pain in the butt because it's terribly heavy to lift it over. And when you are dumping it, you want to do it on either a level ground or something with a decline in it so that it wants to come out. Where we have it this year for it to decompose is not ideal. It's an incline, but we have a tractor so I can just kind of push it at the end of the day and make the pile that I want it to be. It's really great. In my situation on this particular tractor, if there's a lot of leaves on the ground, it kind of gets caught up in the front of the tractor. That has nothing to do with the Cyclone rake. But one thing that I can say is probably a little bit to do with the Cyclone rake is the suction from the exhaust port for the mower deck. It's not a perfect seal. They say right in the paperwork for the Cyclone rake, you don't need a perfect seal, but it makes a huge difference when you have that sealed up. I sort of made a pretty quick temporary foam / duct tape seal around it to get it nice and good on the sides of it last year, and it worked really well until it failed about an hour into using it because the suction just eventually sucked it into the Cyclone rake. But at some point in time I'm going to make a little bit better one out of plastic or something like that to really shore that up. And that is purely dependent on your mower and if it just happens to fit up nicely, because there is some customization in how you get those to go on. Additionally, to help my workflow using this thing, I'm thinking about adding some kind of rack that goes behind here. When you install this Cyclone rake, and of course this is all dependent on your tractor and everything, but you have to put this plate in. There's another style as well that it might go to depending on your tractor. But you install this plate onto the back of your tractor, and it would be really convenient to keep a leaf blower with me so that I can kind of blow leaves out while I'm working, and also have a place to properly hold this thing because it's important to keep the mesh cleared out.
Every time I go to dump leaves, I go and I clean this out so that it can have the airflow it needs to function correctly. And what I'm thinking, it'd just be useful all year round really, is to put some kind of rack that maybe mounts from there and comes up and somehow ties into the rot bar here. And I think I'll have it set up so it can hold a trimmer and a leaf blower, and then something simple for that brush, and maybe one or two other things, so that I can always keep those implements with me, and as I need to trim something or whatever, I can just pull it off and quick do that. I think that will make my life a lot easier and be kind of a fun little project. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments, and if you have any ideas or have seen someone do something similar, also consider subscribing if you want to see a video like that in the future. But yeah, that's one of the things that's been just a little trouble point for me in general. Has nothing to do with the cyclone rake though. Besides that, I really highly recommend these things. So if you thought this was interesting and maybe you didn't know a cyclone rake was a thing, or were thinking about getting one, and this kind of gives you some encouragement, give this video a like and consider subscribing. It helps me out, it encourages me to make more videos and lets me kind of keep doing this sort of stuff all the time. So as always, have a good one.